Good morning and welcome to OTB AM. It is the morning after the night before, and really only one place we could start. And really only one person myself and Owen could have in studio this morning. It's Kenny Cunningham, and a very good morning to you, Kenny.
Yeah, morning, lads.
You brought the lattes with you to try and sort of ease you through a pretty rough morning.
Technically, I didn't bring it with me.
I got you. I mean,
you got the cup out of the cupboard, placed it under the machine, and then Scarford, I noticed.
I mean, I set up the coffee. I left it there for you.
He's just not into awkward coffee machine chats. That's all.
It's a pretty sweet looking drink, though, isn't it? I mean, in a glass as well, classy.
It's not a sweet taste.
Is it not? It's manky, is it?
It's not the best.
We'll get you.
I wouldn't be a connoisseur now, but
we'll get you
that's not great.
I thought you'd be more of a flat white man, than a latte. But there we go. It's pretty grim this morning, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a little bit discouraging, the performance. I must admit, I was a little bit worried going into the game, and I was a little bit kind of negative, a bit downbeat going into the fixture. But just thought Wales in particular, I just expected a reaction from them. New manager. Obviously, the team they put out was a reasonably strong team, but just felt off the back of the result last year, etc., just felt as if Wales were going to turn up and put in the performance. Question is, would we be able to match it? Soak up the pressure as we often do, hang around in the game, and maybe come away with some kind of result. But no, we couldn't. We pretty much got overrun really for the majority of the game, and although we didn't create too many chances, which wouldn't be untypical of us, kind of defensively, how kind of shoddy we were, how we got opened up as easy as we did, was probably the big surprise of the evening. So
lacking a bit of shape, lacking a bit of cohesion, lacking a bit of confidence on the ball that I know Martin and Neil has spoken about afterwards. When you break down each of the goals, Kieran Clark caught his heels a little bit for the first one, definitely caught for the second one, the Gareth Bale goal. Hourahan standing was the third goal. There's a challenge in midfield. Hourahan stands, puts his hand in the air and stands there for sort of 3 or 4 seconds is the point that allows Wales to go on the attack, and there was a players badly out of position for the fourth goal. I mean, I am suggesting that we had the most fantastic shape last night, or there wasn't some fault on the part, clearly some fault on the part of the people who put that strategy together, the management team. But a lot of individual errors for those goals last night.
Yeah, I think for me it was more the collective shape, how much we kind of got dragged apart. A lot of people look at the first goal and say, well, Kieran's got done there, a ball in behind. But I look at the ball from Joe Allen, the amount of time that he had in possession of the football. There's an opposition centre midfield player for 10-15 yards outside their box in a reasonably central position. Where there are kind of central midfield players. I saw Conor Hourahan getting dragged across the pitch, but I didn't see a reaction from Jeff Hendrick to get across with him kind of in contact. So when that ball got played to Joe Allen, immediately he sprinted out and putting a little bit more pressure on that ball from Joe Allen, making that pass be a little bit more rushed. And maybe then he's not as accurate with the quality of the delivery. Yes, Kieran should be a little bit more.
Are you saying that's to do with our shape setup, or is that to do with
whatever shape? It doesn't matter whether you're playing 4-4-2 or 4-5-1. You need to be, like you talk about, a bit of cohesive unit. That's exactly what you have to be in and out of possession of football. You need to be organised, you need to be set up right. Everybody needs to understand their role in the team. I'm playing central midfielder with a player alongside me. He gets dragged 10 yards to the left. Immediately I react and shift 10 yards to my left hand side, and my winger on my right hand side comes in and kind of narrows up. But if you look at the distance between Conor and Jeff for that first goal, it's too big.
So why I mean, because I suppose what I'm trying to get at here is that, like, obviously a lot of people are saying this morning, and after a 4-1 absolute drubbing, why wouldn't they be, that this management team has had its day. So what I'm trying to drill down to is whether that's the fault of the management team or there's individual error there.
No, I think there's certainly individual responsibility. With enough experience on the pitch, people speak about how weak the team was, but I looked in the spine of the team: Randolph, Duffy, Kieran Clark, Jeff, Jonathan Walters, Seamus Coleman, Stephen Ward in those defensive areas. That's a really experienced spine in the team. So there's individual responsibility. Players should know better, they're experienced players. But I think there's an element of organisation there as well, if I've been honest with you. Adrian, I looked at Wales last night. They looked as if they'd been set up well in and out possession in the football, particularly in possession in terms of how they were looking to play. I saw young Ampadu drop into defensive positions alongside the two centre halves, create little overloads and look to work the ball up through midfield. I saw some good little movements, some good patterns of play higher up the pitch in terms of how they were looking to transfer the ball from one end of the pitch to the other. So very quickly you looked at Wales and thought, well, there's a real structure to their play here, real identity, how they're looking to actually play. Didn't see obviously that so much with us in possession. Very rarely do. We don't have a huge amount of possession of the football, but kind of out possession. Then there's also the mentality of, well, how cohesive are we out possession? How are we going to defend? How compact are we going to be? How organised are we? How much confidence do we have in the system that we're actually playing, as opposed to maybe looking at individuals? Could he have done better? And yes, they could have. Potentially Kieran Clark, Wardy maybe got a little bit, got himself a little bit
stretch. Maybe
stress. Yeah, this is too much between him and Kieran Clark. Could have been around on the cover. Yeah, but these are all the things which you talk about during the course of the week. Generally, in terms of your preparation, your kind of tactical setup. How much does Martin and Roy? How much importance did I put to that? I'm not too sure. I mean, if you speak to the players coming out of the squad, really there's not a huge amount in terms of team organisation that gets done during the course of the week. That's probably the decision Martin and Roy makes, is how they like to manage, is how they like to operate. But it always makes me nervous to be a player. As a player, I like to be organised. I like to have those little pictures in my head. I like to go on the pitch knowing, yeah, I understand my role in the team. I understand how we're gonna play, what's required of me, like the whole team, the collective. And just last night, in and out possession of the ball, we looked so loose, so disjointed, really got pulled apart. That was probably the most dispiriting thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not as black and white as some people are making out this morning. Either A, blame the players, or B, blame the management. Now, I think there's a lot of credence in the argument that things were so bad last night on an individual level that that's almost a positive. Like, take the Gareth Bale goal, for example. When Kieran Clark is presented with that situation, he's like given a big red button and he's told not to press that big red button, which is allowing Gareth Bale to go onto his left foot. And he does the Homer Simpson. He presses the big red button and he allows Gareth Bale to cut in on his left foot. Game over straight away. That being said, we had an argument out in the office. Was that a world-class moment or not from Gareth Bale?
No
I think
chance.
it was. I think it was a world-class moment. I don't think too many other people would have been able to pull that off on the pitch last night.
I could have probably, the space he was given, I'd say I could have pulled it off.
Well,
there was nobody within an Arsenal.
His third touch was absolutely outstanding. To take now, granted,
his touch to take the ball down was unbelievable.
Allowed to take that touch inside.
That's why I would rule it out as a world-class goal.
Well, you know, I think you do world-class things on the training pitch, no? Even if there's nobody marking you.
Yeah, but they're not considered to be world-class things because they're on the training pitch.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
That would be essentially what I would think.
I think you two, I'm going to interject. You two are splitting the hairs here. I think it was an actual top-class finish. When you say a world-class finish, for me, there's only a handful. There's only a handful. If you're saying world-class, there's only a handful of players. Yeah, if you're saying top world-class, you're saying there's only 3 or 4 players who could actually put that ball in the back of the net. I think there's more than that. For me, the argument is how easily he received the ball and actually got himself into 1v1 situation against world-class players. You can't allow that to happen. You know, Kieran Clark and Stephen Ward at that particular time between them need to close that gap and need to double up. Gareth Bale shouldn't be receiving the ball 30 yards from our goal at any point in the game and find himself in a 1v1 situation with any of our defenders. Got to be a collective responsibility there. Well, Seamus Coleman eventually
tracking back.
Yeah, but when the ball's smashed over the corner, your left-sided centre half, you need to have your left back in contact. Kieran should be screaming. Stephen Ward should be seeing that and getting back in a good defensive position. Actually, Wardy should ideally be actually competing with that ball with Gareth Bale and actually looking to head the ball.
He pushed up because Hendrick what started it all was a poor pass from Hendrick.
Yeah, poor pass from Hendrick, looking to play down the right hand side. So he's not even looking to involve Wardy at that point. He's looking to hit a ball to Seamus Coleman or Callum Robinson. At that point, Kieran Clark should be. If I was in Kieran Clark's position, I'd be having kittens. If I was seeing Gareth Bale peeling off my left shoulder, I'd be screaming at me left back to get back in contact, almost level with me. So if we give away possession of the ball, as a defender, you always have to think worst case scenario. If we surrender possession of the ball, are we in good defensive positions? And you're only in a good defensive position there if you've got your left back in close contact with you and you're not leaving yourself in a 1v1 situation against potentially one of the best players in the world.
But either way, the initial point was that it was a shoddy piece of Irish play which led to that moment of top class or world class, whichever way you look at it. So there's actually a positive in that surely that can be improved pretty quickly. But what's very worrying, I think, is Martin O'Neill's post-match comments, where he does point out fairly, I think, that we're missing a lot of players. But as if that's some sort of excuse for Ireland's systems failure yesterday, that they don't have those players, so therefore they're not able to execute the game plan. Well, how shoddy is the game plan if they can't execute it with whatever players slot into those positions?
Firstly, I say it wasn't a 1v1 or a 1v2, it was a 1v0, and that's why it wasn't a world-class goal. But anyway, if we had Declan Rice last night on the pitch, and if we had Harry Arter on the pitch, and if we had Alex Ferguson in the dugout, would we have won that game last night?
It depends how long Alex Ferguson's been there.
No, but right, it's hypothetical, so run with it, right? He's committed to the start of this campaign.
I think there's a legacy of failure here that resulted.
He's committed to the start of this campaign, so he's had campaign. We're already calling this thing a campaign. But he's had the months, whatever he's had to sort of get to grips with things.
Yeah, one individual player would have made a huge difference there. If you're mentioning Harry or Declan in particular. Now, the things that we're talking about in terms of the deficiency in the performance would have been fixed by one player, no matter how good he was in any area of the pitch.
My point is that we'd have been beaten by Wales anyway, right? Like that's
I don't think Harry in that how we played last night, we started off on kind of a 4-4-2, Callum Robinson playing just off Jonathan Walters, and Jeff played alongside Connor in centre midfield. For me, Harry Arter doesn't get into that team in the central midfield too anyway. Declan, absolutely.
Where would he have played last night? Sort of holding midfield? Who's Declan Rice if he was there?
Yeah, he would play, I would imagine, as one of the midfield too. The interest for me before the game was whether Martin would persist with the back three, because all summer he kind of committed himself to the kind of 3-5-2. Now, it hadn't gone particularly well, but I thought there was signs in that second half against the USA. We looked as if, maybe we'll just settle into the system a little bit. Declan obviously played in the holding position, but with three defenders at the back. And there was just an indication there that, maybe this system, the players might just settle into it. We've got natural wing-backs there, Seamus Coleman, possibly not so much Wardy the other side, but, with the likes of Greg Cunningham, Robbie Brady coming back, Matt Doherty, players like it was a system which maybe looked as if is Martin looking to bed this in. But of course, last night we flipped it back again, went back to the original back four. So that'd be interesting how Martin sees it going forward, because we do tend to jump a little bit in terms of systems, midfield, diamond shape, midfield 4-5. And I think in some respects, it's nice to be kind of flexible in terms of your formation, but at international level, we don't have a huge amount of time with the players. It's nice when you come and you got a set system of play, it's drilled, the players understand it, everybody understands the role, rather than this kind of little bit of a flip most games in terms of kind of systems. You always feel as if you're searching a little bit, and that can lead to a little bit of maybe a lack of confidence, like a bit of uncertainty amongst the players on the pitch if they're not quite sure in terms of their understanding of the system that we're actually playing and their individual role within it.
Right, we're going deeper on this, Kenny, in a little bit. We are going deep on this one a bit later on. So we do want to hear from you as well, by the way. So get your comments into us on the hashtag OTB AM or on YouTube or Facebook page or whatever you're having yourself. We'll take all of those comments in over the next while and we'll bring them to you and put them to Kenny, I think, probably more importantly than all of that. So coming up between now and 9 o'clock or just about after it, we're going to get stuck into the sports pages very shortly. Needless to say that the back pages and indeed some of the front pages are given over to the reaction to that 4-1 drubbing last night. We're going to hear from Gary Breen, who was on co-commentary duty for us in Cardiff last night. He was speaking to Nathan after the game. Keith Andrews as well was also on co-commentary for another broadcaster at the game last night. We'll get his thoughts coming up. We're going to have more of Kenny's reflections on the game. We're going to talk camogie and golf. Most importantly, it really is the reason we've had Kenny in today, is to discuss the Ryder Cup picks and Tiger and Rory flying along as well on the PGA Tour. So we'll get to more of that in a little bit. And part 2 of Owen's interview with Michael Calvin. So that's all coming. We do want your comments. Keep them coming into us on the hashtag or on Facebook, YouTube, wherever it is that you're consuming us this morning. But next up, it's the back pages.
OTB AM. Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Yeah, all right, we're going to begin with, I mentioned that some of the front pages are given over to the coverage last night. The Irish Times front page has a couple of pretty distraught looking fans as we go to the Times Ireland edition to kick things off. With ONeill, we were decimated, he says, a pretty distraught looking Martin O'Neill there, and some other stuff down the right hand side that my failing eyesight can't really pick up on. But
Pogba and Cooney, basically.
Cooney, new deal, and Pogba not a new deal.
Potentially on the way to Barcelona.
Very good. Right, the Irish Times is our next port of call. It's Republic overwhelmed as Wales cut loose is the front page of the sports section, I suppose, on this one here. It's a shot at Gareth Bale's average enough goal last night. Put Wales.
Well, I'd love to know what the people's takes are on this. Actually,
I'm
like,
exaggerating. I'm exaggerating by saying it is clearly not an average goal.
No, not an average. But like, was it a good goal or was it a great goal? I personally thought when I saw it, that's a absolutely wonderful
Good
goal.
goal, great goal, top goal, world class goal. Come on.
But you wouldn't say it was a world class goal, would you? Come on.
No, I wouldn't for the reasons that I said.
Sorry, Owen. I mean, that's the way it goes, you know.
Top class. Top class.
Tommy tells us to stop arguing about whether it's world class.
I thought you had my back, Kenny. Thanks.
ONeill points to a lack of composure here. Is some of the reaction from Emmett Lone, who was in Cardiff for that game last night. And Irish fans win the song contest before the horror show, writes Mary Hannigan as well. That's the front page of the Irish Times section this morning.
That's impressive.
That we won
in Wales. Yeah, in Welsh crowd.
Yeah,
won the singing competition.
But they got into it after a while, Kenny. I know, like it was. They were singing the Welsh national anthem, and they, probably actually a good reflection of the game. It was sort of even Steven for about 5 minutes, and then they kicked our ass. Right, the Irish Independent sports section this morning. No organisation, no direction, no belief is the thoughts of David Kelly on Ireland's miserable night in Cardiff. You can read more of his thoughts inside. ONeill, drubbing hasn't dimmed my enthusiasm for the Ireland job, writes Dan MacDonald as well. So ONeill obviously coming out afterwards and saying that, we were thumped 4-1. We've sort of lacked a bit of shape. We could have done better on the ball. But I've still got the enthusiasmos, as Trapp used to call it. We kind of expect nothing else though, right? Like, what else is he going to say at this point? It's,
It's a tough interview for him to give afterwards, I must admit. Never easy for a manager.
About an hour in, you're thinking, what am I going to say after the game here?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit too that we were under strength. Let's just accept it and move on is probably, I can understand it, but unfortunately, I think it's a little bit more potentially serious than that.
Premier race heats up with Maher and Cahill in the mix. This is Michael Verney here writing about the race to replace Michael Ryan as the new Tipperary senior hurling manager. Willie Maher and Liam Cahill in the mix there. Maher, of course, Tips All-Ireland minor winning manager in 2012. He's worked with Derek McGrath and Waterford as well, and Cahill, who guided the Tip under-21s to the All-Ireland as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few weeks. That's the Irish Independent this morning. Nice front page of the Irish Examiner today. Cardiff calamity is the reflections here as Martin O'Neill bites his nails during Ireland's 4-1 defeat. O'Neill's Ireland thumped by Wales is the pretty simple headline there in the Irish Examiner.
It did kind of occur to me yesterday evening watching that we were very lucky that this Denmark situation, or very unlucky I should say, that this Denmark resolution has been found. Because in hindsight, we probably want Wales to thump Denmark at the weekend. Because coming in second place, let's not forget, is of very high importance to Ireland. Not just to get relegated into Group C and avoid that, which some people might actually say is a good thing in the long term, but to get into the top 2 seeds and give ourselves the best chance of automatic qualification. This thing is not over. Just because now it looks like a dead cert that we're not going to get into the top 4 places in Group B, we need to finish second. We need to win a game at home. Are we going to beat that Wales team at home? I'd highly doubt it. We might. Like, I know we were talking about the other team who hammered us in our previous competitive game. We're probably not going to beat them at home either, but we've got to put this into context that coming second in this 3-team group is still of very high importance.
That's the biggest factor. You're right on, because I hadn't had a lot of thought about that. I only speak to somebody this week was made aware of that fact. Everybody talking about potentially win your group because qualified to the back door, all the different permutations, but the clear fact that if you finish bottom of your group, that our seeding will drop from second to third for the actual draw in December. That is really significant. We all know the consequences, potentially that having 2 heavy hitters ahead of you in the draw. So if anybody was talking about the lads really be up for, as a player, that would be my chief focus. You want to play in major championships, and being in the second pot or the third is important. It is really significant. So that's the challenge now going forward, picking ourselves up and finding a few performances between now and the end of the group, and like as Owen says, not finishing bottom of this group because there's, I wouldn't say direct consequences, but certainly significant.
Feels like we're screwed already, doesn't it? Like, it's honestly, like, there is no way back for us in this group.
No,
like maybe it's too immediate.
Jerking.
No, but it's too. There's a thought. It's too immediate. Like, we've 2 games next month. Like, we're never going to turn it around that quickly.
2 games next month. We got a game after that, Adrian. Like you see, you forgot. We got 3 games left. And the thing is that we're not. I was talking about Denmark before we came on now, Denmark, but in comparison to that Welsh team, I look at that Welsh team, there's 2 or 3 players there, like Ramsey, Joe Allen, in terms of football and ability. I mean, Denmark, Christian Eriksen, we know how good he is, but apart from that, it's not a Denmark team we should be
ripped us asunder in the last competitive game.
I know, that's sadly they did, but again, you could argue there how we contribute. We're talking about formation, reasonably solid in the game over in Denmark. We changed it again for the home game, went to a diamond in kind of midfield, lost our way a little bit in the system. Obviously hadn't prepared a huge amount in terms of the system, got dragged all over the place. Eriksen found his little pockets of space and really opened us up, and the whole thing kind of fell apart. But that Denmark team,
can you see us winning one of these games?
Well, I can, but it needs to be a huge, in terms of the manner, the quality of the performance in possession, and particularly out possession, really needs to improve. That's clearly obvious.
Kenny, I don't know. I mean, you're feeling much more optimistic.
I'm not saying I'm necessarily optimistic. I'm just stating a fact. Clearly, that's not good enough last night, and we're better than that. Yeah. But it needs a big upturn in terms of individual performance, individual responsibility, but also in terms of the whole team dynamic, the kind of team shape, organisation. All of those things have to get better in terms of how the team's prepared, how we're looking to play, what type of football are we actually looking to play, I'm not a big one in terms of we didn't have possession of the football, how we're looking to play. I don't get too caught up in that. I still see us at our best in terms of a team which plays predominantly back to front early, plays in the opposition half the pitch, squeezes the halfway line. For me, in terms of how good we are out of possession, how compact we are, how defensively solid we are, how good we can be as an attacking force on transitions, on counter-attack. If you think of the famous game in Wales last year, 1-0, that didn't come about from a free-flowing move, the James McLean goal, 10, 15 consecutive passes. It came because Jeff Hendrick put Ashley Williams under pressure and nicked the ball on the edge of the penalty box, and 5 seconds later the ball's in the goal. So how organised we are defensively, for me, is a big factor in how we play going forward, because if we're good at winning the ball back, particularly the higher up the pitch the better, then we're quite good at breaking quickly at opposition teams. That's why last team was disappointing. We never really counter-attacked efficiently last night, because the defensive shape wasn't good and we weren't set up
the body
to win.
From the most recent game tells us that none of that stuff is right.
Yeah, well, it's not, because if defensively you're not set up particularly well and the cohesion's not there, well then you're not going to win against a decent footballing side which Wales are. You're not going to win back too much possession of the football in order to kind of counter-attack as Wales did to us last night, winning back possession, hitting big diagonals, getting in behind us quickly before we can regain our defensive shape. We didn't do that because we didn't look as if defensively we were set up well enough last night to poach the ball back, win the ball back quickly and enable us to break quickly at Wales, which generally we don't do too badly, but we weren't set up to do it last night. Yeah,
could have done with this guy. I mean, that particular performance.
Oh, this guy, I was going to say 18, I'm struggling there. Who's our famous
the captain that night?
2017.
1-0.
David Myler.
Oh, David, of course, yeah.
David Myler, he sent us in a shirt. He did point out to us on Twitter
and
after
his boots.
It wasn't the shirt that he... we had this conversation before. That the shirt that he wore that night. The black plastic bag, is that the one? A couple of photographs that I want to touch on before I hand over to Owen to bring us through the rest of the newspapers. This is one of my life's ambitions. It's not an extraordinary thing. I don't know why I haven't done it really up to this point, but the Laytown races, it's just every time it comes around, you get these really incredible photographs. That's the back page of the Examiner there. That's the front page of the Racing Post. I don't know why, but I'm really attracted by the idea of going to the races on a beach.
Well, literally 24 hours ago, during the Racing Post paper roundup, Ger was saying the exact same thing. So the two of you could organise an excursion,
right.
maybe. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I've got a soft spot for this part of Ireland. Laytown, Bettystown, used to holiday up there in caravan. Rush, all that part. North Dublin, heading up that way.
Well, actually, back in that day, Kenny, there wasn't horse racing up there back in the black and white days.
No, the only horse racing I did was in the amusements. Remember those were like 10p, the horses going to inch the lawn.
That's my favourite fairground game of all time. Where you throw the balls up into it and it's...
balls.
Is that the one?
You got the ball.
Where you got like your different scoring zones.
Yeah.
What a game.
Yeah. And then you tighten up. If you're actually in the lead, the last, you tighten up a little bit.
Is that the greatest fairground game of all time, do you think?
No, but I'm talking about the kind of poor man's version was the one in the actual window. You know, you put 10p in, you press the button, but you think horses would win it. They just went up slowly. That one always came from the back. It always came up from the back and won it.
We've taken a great tangent.
Back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning is played off the park. No excuses from ONeill as Welsh batter Ireland. We've also got this interesting GEA story here by Mark Gallagher. O'Connor not interested in vacant Mayo job. That is Jack O'Connor. He's not going to be the new Mayo boss. So there's, it seems, 2 All-Ireland winning managers who are not going to be the next Mayo boss.
Is he going to be the new Kerry boss?
Don't think so. He ruled himself out in Terrace Talk Monday night, didn't he?
Oh, did he? Yeah, right.
As good as.
Right.
He didn't officially say, I'm definitely not going for the job.
Yeah.
He did say, I'm probably
not going to
happy
get
enough where I am at
Morris
the moment.
Fitz is getting it, is he?
It could be Morris Fitz, it could be Peter Keane. Peter Keane got into favourite with the bookies at this point.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so we will see. It should happen over the next couple of days. It seems on the Mayo job, the door is wide open for James Horn at this point.
Away from now, doesn't it? He sort of had a great denial, non-denial at the roadshow last week. So yeah,
just keep the head down and get the job. Get ratified.
Exactly.
Ratification season is in full flow. Full front page of the Herald Sports section is Ireland flop in Wales. Heat on ONeill as Giggs men run riot in Cardiff Cakewalk. You've got Richard Dunn saying no sign of light. It's his column there. He's a new columnist for the Herald. So it's grim stuff from a lot of the columnists this morning, and rightly so. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is poison green. ONeill still has desire after drubbing, while Dunphy is saying we are going downhill at a rate of knots. Rory's racing ahead as well is the story up here, and Pogba won't rule out move. As we said there a moment ago, Paul Pogba could be on the way to Barcelona in January. France drawing 0-0 with Germany last night in the Nations League. Back page of the Mirror is it's men against boyos. Bale inspires his Welsh wonders to big win over Irish boss. O'Neill's injury hampered squad. It's a long old sentence there, but it's Paul O'Hare writing on the back page of the Mirror. You've got Pogba there as well. You've also got this very interesting one here at the bottom left of the back page of the Mirror. Hoops fume at Gavin's signing. So this is Paul O'Hare writing, Shamrock Rovers claim they are yet to agree a deal with Manchester City for goalkeeper Gavin Bazanu. And if you can make out at the bottom left there, that is indeed Gavin Bazanu signing for Manchester City. Shamrock Rovers said they haven't heard anything about a confirmed signing right yet. They know that they're in the mix. The article mentions the links with other clubs, including Midtjylland, who I didn't actually know were in the mix for Gavin Bazanu. Shamrock Rovers say it's not done, but there is Jason Wilcox and Gavin Bazanu posing for a photo with the new signing. He is going to go back and complete his leaving cert, it seems, and then join them properly next summer. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Yeah,
he's gone back to do his leaving.
He's at the academy signing with the. So I think the story here is that City have enough goalkeepers in their academy at the minute, so they're fine. But they wanted to beat Spurs essentially to the signing of Gavin Bazunu to just lock him down. But we don't need you to come over yet. You stay back in Dublin. Do your leaving cert.
I understand that totally. I think it's the right thing, yeah.
But and they're paying a lot of money for him, by the way. It's $500,000 by all accounts.
$500,000, yeah.
Well, it's about time.
For an Irish player, that's groundbreaking. But this is utterly bizarre. He's stating with the director of the academy signing a contract while his club are going.
They haven't sanctioned it yet, yeah.
It sounds more like a technical issue there for me, more so than anything.
They're hardly trying to squeeze.
It's not a case of Shamrock Rovers are saying we do not want this player to sign for Manchester City. There's obviously agreement between player, club, and potential buying club as well. So I think it's great for I think it's a great story actually all around. He's gone into a great environment. There's a lot of talk. You shouldn't go. You get lost at the big clubs. Far better to start a little bit further down, which I think there is logic to that. But it's difficult to argue you're going into an environment like that in Manchester City in terms of the support network that kid's going to have around them in terms of realising the potential. It's a great opportunity for him. And a decent fee. They're the type of fees we should be getting for players. I'd like to think there's add-on fees, payments in there as well.
Hopefully,
so,
yeah,
exactly.
Goalkeeper as well, it's bizarre, isn't it? Like, considering some of the strikers and wingers and the likes of
not anymore. We're not in the modern game now, Age, in terms of the fees now being paid for the top-class goalkeepers.
But in the context of the other players we've sent across.
Well, exactly, yeah, but we've been underselling their players for years, Adrian. You know what I mean? We've been actually giving all our talent away to the detriment of the clubs in the league, because that kind of money should have been coming back into the club. I'm sure Shamrock Rovers will invest it wisely into their academy. But they're the types of fees. They're the types of fees we should be getting for our players, because they're good enough. They warrant it.
Tab of the morning to you on the back page of the Sun. Killer Whales reads the headline. Cardiff horror show leaves ONeill in choppy waters. You've also got this Pogba shock story here. Just to read you out the exact quote. Pogba behaving.
It's a nothing story. It's a nothing headline now. Don't even read it out.
He's kind of like behaving like a contestant in Love Island. He's keeping his options open. My future is currently in Manchester. I still have a contract. I'm playing there at the moment. But who knows what will happen in the next few months.
See, is that a story?
I think it probably is.
I mean, you could attribute that quote to every single professional footballer over in England.
Give him what's going on with him at the minute. Like he knows that saying that. I mean, Kenny, he knows that saying that is not shutting the door.
Who knows what could happen in the future? Oh well, hold the back pages, like, you know what I mean?
Exactly, that's what they've done.
Clearly, like, yeah. But my point is, it's a nothing story, like.
And they do have. You don't need to turn it around to it on, but they do have bonking Boris on the front page. So it's not as if
You've also got Anthony Martial on the back page of the Sun. He says he's binned his Manchester United contract talks until he knows what is happening with Jose Mourinho. It was kind of like he put all his chips into the table there, but suddenly they get the win against Burnley, and Anthony Martial is like, actually, that guy might outlast me, so I've got to think about this a little bit harder.
Did you start that with Tab of the Morning to you?
Yeah. Are you not familiar with Tab of the Morning to you?
I'm really not, but I mean, it sounds like something...
It's our item for our best headline of the day, our best most puntastic headline of the day, really.
When did this kick in?
From the very start of OTB AM. They just, newspapers clearly
I've
just say
done
they're good work
one-fifth of those shows, and it's literally the first time I've heard that.
You haven't obviously been listening closely whenever I say it. Or
Owen in particular.
I mean,
I've been there every Friday saying Tab of the Morning to you, and Adrian's just blankly staring into space. We've made news across the water, but naturally we have, because it's a British newspaper, and Wales leading the way in The Guardian. Bale lets fly in soaring win for Wales. They're going for the Welsh angle, obviously. Real Madrid forward scored in stunning style, as Ryan Giggs' men crushed the Republic of Ireland in their opening Nations League encounter.
I'm alright. Stunning style, I'm alright with.
Stunning, yeah.
World class. I didn't see any of them saying world class.
Yeah,
but he couldn't have done it in stunning style unless he was world class.
Oh, and that's a big jump. That's a big jump down. Not sure I agree with you there.
That
looks like
clear. That's horseshit. Let's face it.
Well, at least I believe it.
You're grasping at straws.
At least I believe in what I'm saying.
Do get your comments coming into us. Was it a world-class goal last night? Was it just a grand goal? Was it whatever you're having yourself? Let us know.
Last overhead kick was a world-class goal that he scored.
Yeah.
Well, that was an absolutely outrageously world-class goal. This was just a world-class goal.
Outrageously stunning world-class goal.
Come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about the difference between top and top here. This is where we're at.
Top draw.
Right, what do you think about it? Let us know. Get your comments coming into us on the hashtag or on YouTube, Facebook, any of that good stuff. We'll take all your comments and we'll put them to Kenny between now and 9 o'clock. We've lots to come to you. We're going to hear from Gary Breen, we're going to hear from Keith Andrews and plenty more as well. Besides, more importantly, we're going to go and get Kenny
you need to stir that up, man.
Coffee. So we're going to sort that for you, Kenny, in just a moment. Before all of that, here's what happened with the goals last night.
Chance here for Wales, and there's a goal for Wales inside the opening 5.5 minutes, and it's Tom Lawrence who's got it. Ireland cut apart so easily.
Young Ampadu, we talked about a ball-playing centre midfielder. Lovely switch of play out to the full-back, and then suddenly Ireland are stretched. You're looking for recovery positions. Hourihan now is having an argument with Callum Robson that he didn't drop in and help him and Hendricks because they worked the ball so well.
By Ben Davies, who drills it 80 yards through the air, straight onto the chest of Gareth Bale. Brilliantly controlled on the edge of the area, onto his left foot, and there's only one outcome when you've got one of the best players in the world. Gareth Bale with a sensational goal, 20 yards out, left-footed, bends it past Darren Randolph, and Wales lead the Republic of Ireland by 2 goals to 0. That is different level. Who's flying forward this time, plays it through to Aaron Ramsey. It's 3-0. Another mistake from Ireland, and Wales have capitalised, and this is turning into an absolute nightmare. 37 minutes gone, Wales 3, Republic of Ireland 0. It's back to Bale again. Drills a wonderful pass over there and on the volley, and it is 4-0 to Wales from the edge of the area. That is a smashing goal from the full-back, and it's 4-0, and it's utter humiliation.
But you have to see this goal to believe it. It's football of the highest quality. Take out the fact that you've got the likes of Bale, Ramsey and them type of guys. How they move the ball around, how they find space, how they create overloads, and then have the technical ability to finish Ireland off. It's been a real chastening experience for Ireland. And a little Johan Cruyff to come back out again, but Ramsey's caught on the ball show button. Here's a chance now.
Here's a real chance, and Ireland have managed to get one back, and it's Sean Williams. Well, they were showboating, dinked it over the top of Wayne Hennessy, and that's a special moment for him.
Yeah, that's how it wrapped up in Cardiff last night. It was Nathan and Gary Breen who were on commentary duty for Off the Ball at that game. Yesterday evening, grim and all as it was. We're going to get Kenny's deeper thoughts on it in just a few minutes' time. As I do keep your comments coming into us. Kenny's pumped for it. We're all pumped for it.
I've got much left, to be honest with you. I've emptied the tank there.
We've plenty more to come from Kenny, is what we're saying here. First of all, the thoughts of Gary Breen after the game.
So an incredibly grim night for Irish football. A 4-1 defeat to Wales that, to be honest, could have been a whole lot worse. They missed a whole host of chances in the second half. Gary Breen was alongside me on commentary on Off the Ball this evening. How do you sum that up? Just how bad was it?
Very difficult to sum it up, to be perfectly honest. Listen, let's not take anything away from Wales. They were very, very impressive. Ryan Giggs looks like he's coached that team well. I know they have superstar player in Gareth Bale and top Premier League players in Allen, Ramsey, those type of guys, Davies even. But even their young players who were playing only at championship level were so impressive.
Ethan Ampadu, 17 years of age, ran the show there.
He literally did in terms of the hour or so that he played. He played at the base of that midfield. He got on the half turn. He was playing probing balls through the midfield, breaking our lines. And if we narrowed up and were honest as a defensive unit, he then had the ability to play big diagonal balls. He robbed Jonathan Waltz with great strength and then drove forward and made a perfect pass to release Ramsey for that second goal, I think. Having said all that, I think our players have played below their capabilities. There's no doubt about that, and we may well argue. Well, listen, we may well argue and identify how poorly organised they are, but nevertheless, I think Martin O'Neill and the coaching staff can rightly turn around to the players and say, "You haven't performed anywhere near your capabilities."
But you were very impressed with Wales, their organisation. There's a new manager, the way they were trying to play it out of the back, their movement in midfield and defence. We don't see any of that, and we haven't seen an improvement in it from the 5-1 defeat against Denmark. Like Conor Hourihane today, waiting for this opportunity, plays in a two-man midfield against three quality players. They're being hung out to dry.
In terms of Ramsey coming in from that 10 area and beefing up their midfield in a way that Robinson didn't do and didn't understand how he was expected to do it, that was a problem in his inexperience. But you could just see that they were able to pass where they wanted to pass. Everyone knew their role, and that will be the accusation that is aimed at the Irish players now. Do they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing every time they walk onto that pitch? I'm not convinced. I could see what they were trying to do, and you may well identify, and I think a lot of supporters will be saying about the drubbing at Denmark, but even in our successful results, our ball retention has been woeful for an international side anyway. Let's not forget the likes of Georgia have dominated possession home and away against us, so this has not been a surprise. And I think at times our great character, the determination, the drive, the never say die attitude of our players has got us unbelievable results. But at times we have lacked ability at this level.
Martin O'Neill's going to come under huge pressure over the coming days. There's going to be a lot of question marks about whether he and Roy Keane are the men to lead Irish football into the Euro 2020 qualifiers, even into next month's home games against Denmark and Wales. I know you're not the type of pundit who likes to call for a manager to be fired, but with all the nonsense that's happened off the pitch over the last couple of weeks and that type of performance, 9 goals conceded in our last 2 competitive games, does it feel from the outside as though we need a fresh voice, something different?
Well, listen, in terms of what's happened away from the pitch, that will certainly be used as a stick to beat the dream team as it's such, in terms of the criticism from the supporters, but ultimately they'll look at what they're seeing on the pitch, and I think they'll probably say, okay, after the drubbing of Denmark, Martin O'Neill talked about a new era, bringing these young players through or such, or changing the way to try and get us more competitive, but I've seen none of that, to be perfectly honest, and I'll never call for a manager to lose their job as such, because we're talking about Martin O'Neill's huge experience, Roy Keane's unbelievable experience as well. These are serial winners, so you'll look at them and think they must be able to find the answer to what the problems we have at the moment.
There's no sign of it.
There hasn't been, and that's the issue. I think supporters will now say, well, listen, people may argue now that Martin O'Neill is a tired manager as such. That will be the argument because of his age. It's up to Martin to prove that he's not as such, because you think about his success with Leicester, with Villa, with Celtic, it's a long time ago now as such, and I would argue that I do believe, despite everyone talking about the lack of depth in our squad, I do believe these players are capable of more.
All right, Gary, great stuff as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt about who was looking the sharper pitch side last night in Cardiff. There were the thoughts of Gary Breen after that game. We're going to get some more of Kenny's thoughts in just a second. I want to bring you some
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders, yeah. He's fond of that cap, to be fair. He does look good at it though, Kenny, you know. He's
recycling the same one, is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. We have a bunch of comments before we come to Kenny. So, how is Kieran Clark a Premier League defender? Asks somebody on our YouTube. Didn't have a great game last night.
No, he didn't. But I thought he's had problems with injuries the last kind of year or so. Kieran Ozzy haven't had a huge amount of first team action. But prior to that, I thought he'd formed a very solid relationship initially when Shane Duffy came into the team. That looked like a partnership that could actually blossom. But no, he had a difficult time last night. But like I said, for me, you can look all over the pitch in terms of the manner in which we conceded the goals. But on a personal level, yeah, he'll look at those goals, as you always do as a defender, centre-half. You look to yourself first and foremost and say, could have I defended those situations better? I'm sure Kieran will look at it and say, yes, I could have. Not so much maybe in terms of, I should have done better, but in terms of actually, could I stop the danger at source? Could I have screamed that? Could have been more aware of Wardy's position and got him into a better defensive position earlier to actually help me out? And that's what I wasn't good at too many things like as a footballer, but I could generally sense danger, and I knew when I was in trouble up against better players, and I could see it early, and I needed to get players around me, whether it was get me centre half an hour, get me full back in, get me centre midfielder, give me a little bit a cover in front, whatever it was, a better screen. I felt I needed to do. That's good defending as well. It's not necessarily defending, matching the run of a player and in 1v1 situations, amazing sliding tackles, great blocks. Sometimes it's about just opening your mouth, seeing a potential problem rise and just giving a little bit of information, and it stopped at source before it even becomes a problem.
At club level, his club are conceding a lot of goals, and he's been part of that team. Like he's, some of our defenders are obviously playing Premier League football, which is fantastic, but they're conceding 2 against Chelsea, conceding 2 against City, conceding 2 against Spurs. Now, to be fair, that's actually probably par for the course, really, when you consider it.
Yeah.
But, is there any impact on that, do you think, in terms of his...
I don't think so. And again, I'd stay too away from the individual, because like I said, for me, it was all about the collective last night in terms of the organisation in, and Breen touched upon it there, and particularly our possession of football. Generally, our possession got a reasonable shape. If you think back to the Denmark playoff game away, and we drew 0-0, didn't offer too much going forward, sat on the edge of our box for most of the game, but it was a reasonable defensive shape with the back four, kind of midfield 5 and lone striker, Murphy was, for what I can remember. But we all sat in our individual pockets, nobody was more than 10 yards apart. We filled spaces, and they found it very difficult to kind of break us down, where last time we got dragged across the pitch and up and down. There wasn't that kind of compact shape to us as a collective unit. So that's how I feel we fell down last night, rather than pointing the finger potentially at Kieran Clark and 1 or 2 others. I know you mentioned Conor Hourihane putting his hand up, and Ampadu stole the ball off Jonathan Walters, but it was more fundamental than that for me. It was about the whole collective defensive shape, and we need to do that well, because like I said, we're never going to be the team in terms of who are going to dominate possession and play the ball through the turrets. And like I said before, it's not the actual type of football I enjoy watching playing. When I get a picture of us playing at our very best over the years, not even under Martin, I see us playing a football back to getting the ball back to front earlier, wide positions, cross into the box, squeezing the pitch, playing in the opposition half, being dogged, those type of things. That's the type of football that I actually enjoy, and I think we're actually good at. But what we've also been reasonably good at is winning back possession, dropping into a decent defensive shape, being aggressive, getting close to people, winning tackle zone, winning back possession and counter-attacking early. If you think of the last qualifying campaign, David Moyle, the game away to Austria, I'm thinking, tackle David Moyle on the edge of our box, plays into Wes, opens up, quick counter-attack, James McLean's running into space. Because opposition teams are committing players forward, they're leaving spaces in behind for us to use our assets in terms of good running, players with good speed, powerful runners prepared to run into space, and that's what we got that game, the goal by James McLean, great counter-attacking goal. And if you look at our goals scored, generally it comes from transitions, winning the ball back off teams and breaking quickly before they can gain a good defensive shape. Because when teams get 10 players behind the ball, it's not easy to get the ball down and play those intricate passes, those little combinations. We probably haven't got those players at the moment, highly tactical, creative players. So for me, it's all about, and people might say negative, but it's about how good we are our possession of football. We've got to be rock solid defensively. We've got to be as good as anybody our possession of the football, steal the ball back, bully people, win the ball back and break quickly at people and create as many chances by playing that type of football than you would do playing a more possession based game, which I don't ever remember us playing. And people talk about this, we have more possession. We never played a possession base. We played possession, but we played where do you want to play where do you want to play your football? I'm a centre half. I want to play in the last third. I want to play 30 yards from the opposition goal. I don't want to play possession football. I certainly didn't want to play possession football.
When we were successful, that's what we were doing.
Yeah, but there's a lot of talk about we got to play more football. Well, we got to play more football. Well, what type of football do you want to play? This is what I'm talking about. We're still talking about what type of football do we want to play? What's our identity?
I think what
are we good at?
I think I don't know if it's our identity actually, but I think what people want to see is us playing what people. I'm sort of assuming. People are saying that we want to see actually putting the ball on the ground and knocking it around a bit. I'm not saying that we have the capacity to play that. I'm just saying that I think that's what people want.
I disagree with you there. I mean, getting football down and knocking about. I see players do that all the time, knocking the ball about in their own half, taking chances with their pass and playing on the inside, getting dispossessed, absolutely wide open, kamikaze football. I don't want to play that type of football. I looked at us last night. We played more or less a 4-4-2, and it's a shape I actually quite enjoy. Callum Robinson playing off Jonathan Walters. And if you're going to play that way, for me, when you get the ball at the back centre halves or full back, you're looking. I want to play forward. We've got two good targets high up the pitch. Let's get the ball up there early. I'm looking at Jeff Hendrick and Conor Horan. Are they at their very best coming towards the ball, getting the ball on the half turn under pressure? No, what's their strength? So I know Jeff Hendrick's strength is getting into the last third of the pitch, arriving onto the ball late into the box. Conor Horan's exactly the same. 11 championship goals. He's not playmaking centre midfielder. Don't ask him to play that way. Get the ball back to front, get them facing the opposition goal and get them doing what they do best, arriving late onto the ball into the box. We've always had good width in the team. Callum, no doubt, I think has got really good potential. Obviously, wasn't at his best last night, but let's get him into areas of the pitch where he can impact the game. Last third in wide areas as well. James McLean's another one as well. So it's about looking at your strengths. What are your strengths, and playing to them, doing what you're actually good at. And we haven't, we didn't do that last night, but that's what I'm talking about, what type of football we're going to play. It's about having I saw it last night from Wales in terms of what type of football they want to play, and I think it suited their players. The likes of Joe Allen getting the ball deep on the half-turn, Ampey look very comfortable in those areas of the pitch, Ramsey receiving the ball in tight areas. So they played a brand of football last night, which actually quite complemented the players that we have. I'm not looking to play that type of football. I don't think we have the players to do it. So let's play a brand of football which suits us, which we're actually good at, and actually teams don't enjoy playing against.
The thing is, exactly on that last couple of words he said there, the way we set up yesterday, was it not a matter of allowing Wales to thrive in that scenario? Because you mentioned Callum Robinson there, and I don't want to blame Callum Robinson here, but I want to blame the management for the position in which he's in, or perhaps a lack of experience with kind of situational football, where he's essentially supporting Jonathan Walters up front, whereas behind him, Hourhan and Hendrick are getting the runaround because it's 2 against 3. Whereas Robinson's like, do I come back and support the 2? Do I stay up and support Walters? Whereas that 4-4-2 has to be something completely different without the ball. And maybe that fluidity wasn't there. Why it wasn't there? It's a lack of experience from Callum Robinson. The management should have been able to spot that after 20 minutes, that they were getting completely overrun. It was 3 versus 2, not just in talent. Numerically, it was 3 versus 2. Yeah,
well, it's something you prepared prior to the game. It would have been a huge surprise. Wales played slightly variation of a 4-3-3, which they did, kind of a 3, Ampey and Ramsey. So that's kind of coming. So it's not just about, we're going to get done 3v2 in that central area of the pitch. I think your point about Robinson dropping in, but it's all about the collective shape. If you're nice and compact, if your back four are high up the pitch, the distance between your back four and your front 2 generally about 25 metres. As long as you're nice and compact, that really negates the kind of that numerical superiority. You're talking about that 3v2, because you're so compact from front to back, you're narrowed up from the sides, so they haven't really got time to breathe. So as long as you're getting good pressure on the ball as well, your front 3 are putting good pressure on the ball, and their 2 centre halves, then they haven't got that. They haven't got the ability to get their heads up and really kind of pick whatever balls they want to play into midfield. So it's not as simple as, why did we play 4-4-2? They were playing 3 in midfield. That's no problem. No problem playing 4-4-2 as long as you're kind of switch. What they did last night, they're very clever. If our front 2 went to pin their 2 centre halves and make it difficult for them, Ampey was clever enough to make up the spare player. He wasn't just dropping between the 2 centre halves. He was almost dropping into a full back position, into a 3. So now they have a numerical advantage, 3v2. Then they can play beyond their front 2. Now they're breaking the lines. Now Ampey was stepping forward in space and got time to pick his next pass. Now that's clever. That's not Ethan Ampey on the pitch at that moment thinking, off the cuff, I'm just going to... No, that's Ryan Giggs sitting the squad down in the meeting room prior and saying, look, if Ireland play a 2 and go match our 2 centre halves, Ethan, I want you dropping into a 3. Get that numerical advantage. Between the 3, you should be able to play beyond the 2, then we're in. Then we're stepping into midfield, and then we're looking to play our next pass. So that's organisation, that's being prepared, that's giving good pictures to your players. This is how we're gonna play out. So likewise, we need to do that same type of thing. How are we going to play out, and how are we going to defend out possession? How are we going to press? What's going to happen? How compact are we going to be? So that's like That's good. Everybody's doing it. Every club, international football, they're all doing it. That's that attention to detail that we're talking about. You know what I mean? Being prepared, giving your players that information. Players demand it now, I think now anyway. They want that type of information. This is too important. It's too much at stake. So I'm hoping that the players are getting that information. The one worry at the back of our minds is when, obviously, the little bit that's coming out of the squad, and when you, not that Martin gives too much away in Roy, you don't get a sense that there's that meticulous detail in terms of the preparation. And people might say, well, Martin does it his own way, and that's fair enough. But for me, I find it difficult to make the argument that you're better prepared by being less prepared. Because I don't see it in any other environment. I don't see it in too many clubs. I don't see it in any sporting environment, whether it's rugby, we're talking Gad or hurling. I listen to Gaelic players talking, hurlers, the rugby lads. They're all talking generally about the same things in terms of preparation, meticulous planning, the different units, talking down, clear pictures, what's required from a tactical point of view, everybody switched on, all of those things, the fine margins, small percentages. Everybody's talking about the same things, but you got to go and do it. So that'd be the one worry for me. When I look at performances of that, people think, oh, we're all over the place. We hadn't got our strongest team out. The worry for me, I don't mind a below par performance. That happens. We're all human. But for me, if it's a little bit more fundamental than that in terms of, you know, there's a little bit indecision, uncertainty, nervousness, lack of confidence of players and actually what they're doing, which comes about as a result of maybe that lack of planning, that'd be the worry, because everybody else is doing it. And if we're not doing it, Adrian, we're handicapping ourselves before we even go onto the pitch.
Yeah. All right. We've a flood of comments coming in, Kenny, is the best way I can describe it.
At least six. Tell me it's at least six.
Flood, more than six. Frustration at the game last night, sort of resignation at the game last night. Abuse for all of us as well. So, I mean, it's sort of handed out sort of nice and evenly. So we'll get to all of that in just a little bit. Before all of that, we're going to get the thoughts of Keith Andrews after the game last night.
Well, Keith, we feared before the match that this may not go well. Was that worse than you even expected?
Yeah, because I anticipated us setting up in a way where, okay, we know we haven't got X, Y, Z available. We know the issues we've had at Harry Arthur with Declan Rice, but what you have got available is a set of players that are willing to run through brick walls. And if they're organised in a certain way, they've proved, certainly the back four and the goalkeeper, that look, we can frustrate teams. What we do going forward, I wasn't expecting too much what we had available, but defensively, the system, the shape of the team, the cohesion, or lack of, I should say, just wasn't there.
Was there a game plan? Did you see any sign of a game plan?
No, I don't think there was particularly a game plan. You could see very, very evidently from the first whistle what their game plan was. Can we play like that? No, we can't. I personally think with what we had available, the format and the shape of the team should have been Denmark away, grind out some kind of result. Anything we do going forward was probably going to be a bonus with what we had available. But the spaces that we afforded them, Bale with the rotations that they had as that front three, just played into their hands, leaving a 2v2 for Bale's goal. Shouldn't happen.
But there were a lot of sloppy mistakes in there as well. So Bale's goal starts from a really bad pass from Jeff Hendrick that we could see from the commentary position was coming. Hendrick and Horan, the mistakes they made, giving the ball away time and time again, is that because of the system that was employed, that they were totally outnumbered? And I just asked Martin ONeill about this, and about, he says he wants more from his players to be more attacking, to take more chances, to take control of the situation. Can they do that when they're two players up against a three-man midfield?
Well, I think what I would want would be both. I would want a better plan in place. Seamus spoke after the game just now about players need to be braver, players need to do more. And look, players have to do better than what we've just seen there, granted, without a plan in place. But you see when Welsh players get in the ball, 2-3 options, it's synchronised, there's unselfish runs to create space for other players. That simply doesn't go on for Ireland. And I've mentioned that, okay, that's fine from my perspective because we haven't got that type of personnel, but what isn't fine is a plan, a direction of where we're going to go, how we are going to get a result tonight. Yeah. And if that's going to be direct, if that's going to be negative, if that's going to be pragmatic, a la Rafa Benitez, I'm okay with that, as long as we have something that we're all in tune with. But that's not happening at the moment.
Martin ONeill says he's confident he can get the players back up. There'll be no short of enthusiasm when they come together in a month's time. It feels like we're entering the end game, though. That was humiliating in many ways, following on from Denmark, 9 goals conceded in 2 games. Do we need a change? Do we need to start seriously thinking about a change in management?
Well, something needs to change fairly quickly, I would say. I think Martin's been more positive in recent weeks. I think what we need to do now is just press the pause button. Tuesday's game for me probably doesn't mean too much. Friendly games, you trialing players. At this stage, it's all about those 2 games next month. Now, if we get a manner of performance that we've seen here, or against Denmark going back to last November, then obviously things need to change, and that being probably on a managerial front, because if that type of performance is replicated time and time again, then there's something fundamentally wrong. And I don't buy into the fact that it's all down to the players available, the players that at his disposal. We know what's missing, we know we haven't got goal scorers, so what's more important? Keeping clean sheets, being harder to break down, and that's not happening at the moment.
Yeah, we shall see. An interesting month ahead.
Yeah, and an interesting range of comments as well from Keith there in conversation with Nathan, Gary a bit earlier, and Kenny in studio with us as well. So more from Kenny in just a few minutes. Before all of that, the thoughts of the main man, Martin ONeill.
We were well beaten and difficult, yes. Obviously we were missing some key players for us, but still well beaten.
Could you have foreseen that?
I think that obviously we set out with good intentions. They scored very early on in the game. Their second goal from a world-class player was a world-class goal, and of course that sets you back, and it's 2-0 down after 15 minutes. It's a tough way back, but yeah, it was a hard evening.
It was a very different looking Wales side to when you met here last. Was that a surprise to you, perhaps?
No, you mentioned this beforehand. I mean, I'm not in charge of the Wales side. And there's a new manager has come in, and he's blooding some young players who are very good. I think one of them has gone to Bournemouth for about £10 million. So yeah, they look as if they've got some good players. But I think that I think we had a different side out than when we won the game here this time last year.
Yeah, you were missing a lot of good players, and was that the effect that we saw by the end of the evening?
I would have thought so. Yes, I mean, I think that we're unable to be missing 5 or 6 Premier League players and still put on a real big show. We need to be at full strength if we can be. No, I'm not so sure. I'm not so certain when the last time we've actually been at full strength, but I've not known when we've been as decimated as this.
What do you do for that next game that you've got then?
Well, we've got a game coming up against Poland. We'll try and utilise the squad if we can, and try and get ourselves prepared for the 2 games in Dublin. The very important games, Wales and Denmark.
The captain's said that the side needs to play better. Would you offer the same message, if you like?
Of course, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that we try and be braver on the ball. I think that's very, very important. I think that regardless of what division the player's playing in, regardless of the little time perhaps some of the players have had on the field of play in their own particular division, I think when they come here, we know it's a big step up, and you have to be ready for that as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, pretty contemplative. Martin ONeill in conversation with Sky Sports after the game last night. We're going to get more of Kenny's thoughts on that in just a few minutes. But as I said, there was a whole flood of comments coming into us here on the topic matter of the morning. So going to bring you a flavour of those now. Do keep them coming in, and we'll bring more. Try and bring you as many, if not all of these, as we can before we leave you. We're going to kick off here with Alan Morrissey. Very good morning to you, Alan. Thanks for getting in touch. We should have done what Denmark had to do in their friendly against Slovakia the other night and send out a Division 4 LDL team to represent us instead. Hashtag OTB AM. Jump in there, lads, whenever you want. Wes Kenny says, no chance Declan Rice declares for us after watching that tripe. I saw a lot of people suggesting last night that if we could try and get some way of making sure that Declan Rice was not looking at the game last night by way of trying to convince him to come back in, might not be the worst idea. David Grant, good morning to you, David. Thanks for getting in touch. 17-year-old Ampadu dispossessed 34-year-old John Walters leads to third goal. Younger and well-organised Welsh side.
Left him on his arse as well.
Yeah, that didn't look great.
I think Walters was kind of trying to bite a foul, was he, in his defence, but still it looked very, very bad.
But can't happen. That happens. Centre forwards are dispossessed. Somebody pinches the ball. That's what we're overly critical of John Wall. He's actually one of the best we've ever had at that in terms of keeping possession of the football and using his body. Your centre forwards lose possession, gets the ball nicked off 5 yards inside your own half. There's no way that ball should be in the back of your net. 6 seconds later.
Yeah.
There's no way that player should walk past your central, your midfield straight at the back for, play a 15-yard pass and the ball's in the back of your net. So yeah, John Wall's be looking at thinking should have kept the ball, but still, there's no way he should go from there to the back of your net in the space of 10 seconds.
David McKaymack says he can see us losing all 4 matches here. Man after my own heart, as I mentioned a bit earlier on. David McElvenna says maybe time for Mick McCarthy or Brian Kerr to take over. There's definitely a lot of Mick McCarthy love that's been coming in over the last few days. David Grant, another comment from David Grant here, says far from the Railway Cup, which you were discussing, I think, yesterday.
Ger was the one who said it's going to be like the Railway Cup. I disagreed with him heavily. It was a stupid comparison, and we clearly do care about it, don't we?
The Nations League is the most balanced international tournament. Scott's seeding for the traditional sorts seeding for the traditional qualifiers. Teams of equal ability playing more regularly, backdoor to the Euros through playoffs. Not an unreasonable point. Just turns out we're shit at the minute, and it's not really suiting us. That's David Grant there. Good morning to you. Michael Gaffney, is there anything to be said for a mass? I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, it must be in the top 5 at the minute, Kenny. Let's all start, let's get the prayers out.
Well, no, it's not. It's, obviously a lot of humour there in those comments, but I think the fundamental question for me you got to ask yourself, there'll be a lot of talk about we haven't got the best team out, expectations levels. But when I look at the performance, regardless of the players on the pitch, I always ask myself, what are we getting the best out of these players? Forget about if it's our strongest level or it isn't.
Yeah.
Are we getting the best out of what we've got? I think that's the fundamental question. People talking about maybe changing manager or whatever question, maybe Martin or Roy. But I think the only question really comes down to is, are they getting the best out what they have available to them?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental question. That's where the debate should be.
Well, he mentions the 6 Premier League players there.
Hang on a second, we will come back to that. I know we're going to get to it in a second. I want to get through some of these comments here first of all. Joseph Lennon, ONeill should have went after the trashing by Denmark the same way Trapp should have went after the Euros. FAI need to act now and cancel his contract before we waste more time preparing for the Euros. Last night was no shock to anybody who's watched the team regularly since the Euros in France. That's Joseph Lennon. Cormac Murtagh, 1 loss away from home, no panic, says a very calm Cormac Murtagh this morning.
Like his optimism.
Brian Fitzgerald, I think the role and the impact of the FAI High Performance Director Rude Doctor needs to be looked at and examined. The League of Ireland needs massive funding and promotion, and Brian Kerr should be involved in some capacity. Cormac Sheehan, good morning to you. Cormac, O'Neill and Keane have to go now. It was awful stuff. You can get the full range of sentiment that's coming through here, from the panicked to the less so. Brian Salmon says, missed the game last night but listened to Off the Ball on the way home. Might not have the players, but we still should be organised and hard to beat. Could have been 6 or 7. Dark days ahead. Management need to do better. #Koibig. Blue Squad, I told you Wales would beat you. I mean, okay.
No.
Paddy Smith
really showed us, didn't he?
Paddy Smith we're getting personal there now. Paddy Smith is reacting to Owen's claim that Gareth Bale's goal was world class. World class, ... blah blah blah, move on.
It's not personal. I respect your opinion. Actually, no, he did say it's world class, sorry.
I think it is fair comment. I think
no, he's saying world class, blah blah blah, as in.
I think he's indicating the conversation really was going around in circles and ultimately going nowhere.
Simon Delaney says, taxi for O'Neill and Keane. Darren Shanley says, I mean, he's not catastrophising here at all. The day Irish football died. I mean, I think that's,
a bit dramatic.
A little bit dramatic. James Gill, not a fan of the management team, wants them out. Andy Dunleavy, as much as I like O'Neill and Keane, if we have another disaster result against Denmark in October, can we honestly see things improving drastically going forward? If not, why keep them on board? Jack Emeraldo says Ireland are 1 or 2 players short of beating Andorra. Looking on the optimistic side. Paul Little, surely lack of organisation and intensity up front and particularly in midfield saw our back 4 left wide open to the Welsh attack. Good morning to you, Paul. Thanks for that comment. We have Ireland 2015. Hard call if we could change. If we should change manager. The players aren't great, but we have to try and play better football. It really is Stone Age stuff. How about Kenny Cunningham for manager? Says another commenter here.
Kit manager.
For those listening to this morning, Kenny just threw his eyes up to heaven there. Matthew Breslin, look into the under-21 squad to fill the gaps in the squad where we're weak, bring the youth through and give them a chance. There's enough quality at under-21, integrating them with the experience we already have. That's Matthew Breslin. David Wilson, Some questions here from Kenny on Instagram. David Wilson, if Martin O'Neill was to go, who in your opinion would be the best to take over?
I just don't think the conversation should go there. For me, we're nowhere near that. For me, the most interesting thing is about the team, the squad at present. And like I said before, you know, what type of football are we trying to play? Somebody made a comment there, one of your texters, viewers, what do you call them?
Audience, yeah.
One of your
viewers,
audience, yeah, made a point about not looking at maybe this game in isolation. If you look back maybe over the previous year, back to the Denmark game, even the qualifying campaign, in terms of put your finger on, in terms of performances over the course of 90 minutes, that you really felt, whoa, you know, start to finish 90 minutes of football, I really enjoyed that. We looked a team in and out possession, we were at it, intensity was there, the organisation, we really looked like a team. There probably hasn't been too many. I mean, we've had some good results, and there's been some really good moments. The game against the Wales, obviously, which got us into the playoffs, but there hasn't been too many. And I think over the course of a period of time, a year, 18 months, you're looking for signs there of improvement, that we're heading in the right direction, that there's a plan there. It might take a bit of time, but kind of stick with it. We're kind of heading in the right direction, whether that's integrating younger players into the team, and you have to be a little bit more patient, or just commit to a set kind of style of play of sorts, whether that's a formation 3-5-2 we've spoken about, for whatever it is. You know, we're going to stick with it, and you know, we're going to see it through. And over a period of time, people are saying, a couple of bad results in there, but I can see where we're going with this, and possibly hand on heart over the past maybe 18 months, 2 years, that you haven't got that feeling that there's been some good moments here and there, but ultimately, have we really improved? Are we really heading in the right direction? And ultimately, are we getting the very best out of these players, wherever level you think they are, whether they're playing Premiership, Championship? I don't get too caught up in that, what level they're playing, how many games they're playing at their club. I look about their individual capabilities, collectively the squad's capability, and are we tapping into that? Are we getting the very best out of that? And fundamental of that for me is in terms of the input from the kind of management team. There's a huge amount of experience there, even on the coaching staff, and that's where we're so dependent on them actually kind of moulding those players into use. But you used the word cohesive earlier, into a really cohesive, well-drilled unit in and out possession that's getting the very best out of what we have available to us. That's what we're at. That's where every manager and coach is after. And at the moment, Breen said it there, I don't think we're getting the best out of what we've got. And that's got to be the topic of conversation. Well, how can we get better then? Fundamentally, how can we get better? Is it because when players aren't brave enough to get on the ball? Well, there's an element to that individual responsibility. Martin's alluded to it there, but that's not it. That's not it. You're more prepared to get on the ball and have more confidence getting on the ball if you've got a real understanding in terms of where your next pass is going to be, and everybody knows where their next pass is going to be because you've set it out on the training pitch. You understand how you're looking to play, where you're looking to play, and everybody's switched on, in tuned, know where we're looking to play. Those Wales players knew it last night. Ampadu got turned. Immediately there was good rotation ahead of the ball. They were occupying areas where Ampadu knew he could find them in little pockets. That wasn't just instantaneous, instinctive at that particular moment. Players understood their roles. They'd been coached. They'd been told where to receive the ball, with the type of movements that they were expected to make, and they reap the benefits, the rewards of that.
We do get too bogged down on the whole level of where you're playing for your club, and I think it's not just us at this point. I think the management team are getting bogged down at that at the moment. Like, we conceded 2 goals to Championship players last night, and I think that should be the final kind of showing to Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane to stop bloody talking about how many players are starting for Premier League teams. Like, we've got good players. We've got players that are better than what we showed. Even the players that were on the pitch last night, and again in the post-match, Martin O'Neill talking about the 6 Premier League players that are missing. Like, they are, like, I think it is fair comment to say they are getting bogged down with that. It's not just a media thing at this point, focusing in on the Premier League players that were missing. And like, just to, like, we were having this conversation during one of the clips, Kenny, about how many of those Premier League players would actually start. Well, there's 6 of them that he mentioned there, if you include Declan Rice. The other 5 are Harry Arter, Shane Long, Robbie Brady, James McCarthy and James McLean. What are you having there? Do they all start? Do they all get into the Ireland team? Starting 11. No,
I think that is fair. Like I said, I thought the spine of the team was strong last night. Keeper, back 4, midfield 2, Jonathan Walters. That wasn't an inexperienced, so you'd say not a weakened team. And Callum McDowd has been integrated into the squad. I think has got potential as well. If James McLean was available, yeah, you'd make an argument. James on left, maybe Callum O'Dowd flipped onto the right hand side instead of Christie.
Separate to that, there's 5 Premier League players and James McLean.
Yeah,
obviously.
so you might be talking maybe two.
Does he go? Does he change shape? Like I know you said a bit earlier on, you're a fan of that. Does he change shape and does he put Declan Rice, if he's there, if we're talking about that, if ahead of that back three almost?
I think it's a little bit incidental. The shape is important in terms of complementing the players, and it suits the players. Players have confidence in it, and it kind of suits the strengths they have available. For me, whatever shape you throw onto the pitch, you got to work at it. You got to set it up. You got to drill the players in terms of what's required of them. Back three, back four, where you're overloading central areas, playing with wingers 2 up front, 1, whatever it is. Yeah. You got to throw it on the training pitch, and you just got to go through it. And it's as simple as that's kind of that's what coaching's all about. Get it on the training pitch and drill your players. This is what's expected of you. When you get possession, these are going to be your options. This is how we're going to play, and just clear pictures and just continuation, just repeating the same messages, and eventually the penalty will drop. The players become comfortable, kind of what's expected of them. So, like I said, easy for me. I'm not involved in the squad. I'm not in there. I'm not looking at every particular training session. But kind of when you do look at the team on occasions, a lot of spirit there at times, a lot of enthusiasm. But at times you feel as if not really in sync in terms of what we're trying to do collectively in and out possession. That's always the kind of small worry. Probably a little bit of frustration because that can be effective. You can improve that. In terms of players' individual capability, I get to a certain level, he is what he is. You got to work with that. But in terms of how you prepare the team tactically, particularly the whole collective, there's significant gains to be made there in terms of how you set the team up. We've all seen it. Teams like individual, you look at the individual sums, he's not great, but collectively you put them together, you really drill them, you train them well, and they can be a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, on that point, it feels like we should be able to crack these teams that we're playing. I think that's the biggest frustration, that there's no reason that we shouldn't be competitive or beating teams like Wales and Denmark, and we're nowhere near it.
Well, certainly competitive. We weren't really competitive last night. There was a big chasm between the teams last night, probably for the reasons I suggest that we're talking about. Missing 1 or 2 individual players, but I think we're kidding ourselves. We think 2 or 3 of those players come back into the team and all our problems are going to disappear. That's clearly not the case. So for me, it's always about that. I'm not a player now. I'm a small bit of experience I've had coaching. It's what interests me now. But I always feel, looking from a coaching point of view, management in terms of your responsibility as a manager or a coach. I've got a responsibility to these players now in the 4, 5, 6 days leading up to this game in terms of getting these players prepared. It's almost like a professional responsibility which you have to your players to get them prepared in terms of tactically the setup of the team. You'll have some very clever players within the team, got a good eye for the game from a footballing point of view, very switched on, but still, you've still got to throw it out there on the training pitch, in the video analysis room. This is what everybody's doing. Just keep throwing the same messages at the players. Put it on the training pitch, let them have a look at it, let them get comfortable, a good feel for it, and then you'll see players play a little bit more confidence, a little bit more assurance, because they have a little bit of confidence in terms of how they're being asked to play. When you see a bit of uneasiness for me, nervous, I've had it myself as a player on the pitch, they're not really at it, they don't want it enough, look at them, they're all over the place. That for me comes from a lack of confidence in what you're being asked to do, a lack of understanding, and not really having a basic grasp, understanding of what really you're being asked to do.
Damien Halpin on Facebook. Adrian, I'd run if I was you. Jesus, the other 2 would make you want to turn off.
That'd be me and all.
I'm only giving that to counterbalance the next comment from Jack Emeraldo.
I'd run if I were you as well.
You got to be specific in your criticisms, though. You got to be specific.
Just giving it as balance to the next comment from Jack Emeraldo on YouTube, who says, Kenny is great, Owen is good, the other lad's a bit of a plonker. So you know what I mean. You give it one end, you take it.
You're a facilitator. You're a facilitator, Adrian.
I only settle for great, not good.
You could be the star of the show. You just elect not to be. I'll give you credit for that.
I'm going to. I have a question that I want to get to, and it's probably too big to cover in 30 seconds, so we'll come to it in a little bit. But before all of that, Nathan Murphy, good morning to you.
How are you?
What part of the world are you in?
I'm in a dark corner of Dublin Airport right now.
Philosophically or actually?
I've just literally and metaphorically, I'm in a dark place, Adrian.
What is the sort of overriding feeling after the game last night? We're trying to pick through it here in terms of the future, I suppose.
Well, talking to some of the Irish fans in Cardiff Airport this morning, the overwhelming feeling is that nobody's really surprised. There was a sense that this was coming. That was the feeling on the flight over yesterday as well. There was no great excitement. There was no hope. There was no feeling that this was a new era for Irish football. Everybody was quite fearful about what might happen and how horribly wrong it could go. And I think their fears were well-founded in the end. The question now is, can they turn this around over the next month? I don't think there's a huge amount of belief that they can. And I think Kenny summed it up. There's obviously issues surrounding players being injured and the depth of quality we have. But are they getting the best out of the players that are available? Is there the organisation that's needed? And you'd have to say no, there's not.
We spent a lot of time sort of picking through the reasons to be grimmed out this morning, and there were plenty of them after the game yesterday. Is there any, I mean, are there, maybe we're grasping at straws here, but in terms of what Martin O'Neill, obviously we have a game in the next few days, we have a couple of important, in the context of this campaign, games obviously next month as well. It's a pretty quick turnaround. Like, in terms of positives last night, is there anything that we can hook on to?
No, I don't think there is. Looking ahead to next month, the positives might be that we may get some players back, and it is a very different team if you suddenly have a midfield of Declan Rice and James McCarthy. You add in James McLean, Shane Long, a little bit of pace, and you can maybe attack on the counter, because we know that we don't hold on to possession. And that was the most disappointing thing last night. On the few occasions in the first half when maybe the game was in the balance, when we won the ball back on the edge of our own area, they looked up. There were no options. There was no pace there at all. There was no outball whatsoever. So I think it's one of those nights, unfortunately, that we had under Trapattoni, that we had towards the end of Steve Staunton's campaign, where there are very few positives to pick out. It does feel as though, as I said to the two lads, that we are in the end game, that this is only going one way. And Martin O'Neill, he was interesting in his press conference in that he wasn't agitated. There was no real tension. He just seemed bloody depressed about it all, that there doesn't seem to be any real way out of this. It was a very, very sad night, I felt, for Irish football, that we were so totally outclassed by that team.
When you say that we're sort of getting towards an end game here, like, what's the meat on the bones of that? Was there a sense from any of the players last night? I mean, they're never going to say it overtly, but sometimes you can get a bit of a sense that maybe these two things are headed in the opposite direction.
I often do wonder that, and listen, Kenny will know better about what the talk does be in the dressing room and around the camp after a performance like that. Do the players go together and realise that they're individual performances, or do they start wondering, are we getting the best coaching? And that's the part I wonder about, because our strengths at the moment are defensively. And you look at that back four, Seamus Coleman, we know individually he's got incredible talent and maybe didn't have his best night in the first half. But the other three, so Shane Duffy's working with a really good manager, Chris Hughton. Likewise, Kieran Clark defensively with Rafa Benitez, and Stephen Ward with Sean Dyche. You get the sense that the three of them at club level, it's been drilled into them constantly. Rafa Benitez at Newcastle does the boring stuff day in, day out. He drives his players demented with working on body shape, with working on positioning. It's not glamorous, it's not fun, but it means that Kieran Clark doesn't put in performances like he did last night. He doesn't switch off. He's not allowed. Where we've gone from 10, 15, 20 years ago, players upping their game when they get to Ireland. All three of those players seem to play below what they play at club level. And you would have to assume that's because the coaching they're receiving in Ireland isn't at the same level as it is at club level. Now, does that somehow manifest itself then into a pretty angry dressing room? I'm not sure how that dynamic works out, but from a supporter's point of view, I can't see the atmosphere, it being one of these rip-roaring atmospheres on a Saturday night in a month's time against Denmark, where we've 50,000 people urging the team on. It just feels as though everybody's ready for something new.
Like, say for example, if this doesn't improve, if we suffer, say, maybe a two-goal defeat, say, over the next couple of games, I'd say that would constitute kind of a consistent downfall at this point, where the common belief would be it's time for something new. At what point does it become the right time to get rid of Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane? And at what point does the FAI decide that they're happy enough to pay them off?
You would have to think, if we were to end up losing all four of these games, that there's no way it would be possible for them to stay in charge for the qualifiers. This is possibly the most important qualification campaign we've ever had. We're going to have home matches at the Aviva Stadium if Ireland can qualify. John Delaney has put a huge amount of effort into making sure that those games take place in Dublin. For us not to be a part of it would be absolutely disastrous. So I would think at the end of these four games, they will have to sit down. They'll have a break of a couple of months. They'll have time to make a decision, and that's probably when we would see if there is a change. What the options are, God knows. Do we go back to Mick McCarthy? Is there a young, fresh coach out there who can come in and revitalise Irish football from the top down and from the bottom up. I'm not sure if somebody's ever going to be given that sort of power, but 2 bad defeats, a replica of last night, a replica of what we saw against Denmark in a month's time, and it's hard to see how, with everything that's happening off the pitch as well, how they're going to turn this around, how they're going to be able to stay in charge.
Nathan, safe home, short hop from there, good luck.
Good luck, take it easy.
Take it easy. Nathan in a dark place there, a dark hole, I think, as he said himself, at Dublin Airport. He's a bit grimmed out this morning.
Is that a pub? Is that a booze in the dark hole? I haven't.
It is, yeah. It's clearly hopping.
9:05 on a Friday morning, Kenny. I mean, he'd be doing well. So yeah, plenty of comments coming into us about all of that good stuff. Do keep them coming in. Digger Forum has been in touch to say that Gareth Bale's goal was world class. The Kerry Mafia have come out in support of each other here. Chest down, top corner from outside the box. What constitutes world class in Westmeath?
Yeah.
I mean,
bit of a stretch top corner.
I wouldn't say it was top corner.
No.
I would say it was a well-controlled ball that you would expect from any player at Real Madrid under no pressure whatsoever. He slides across the box. There's nobody coming anywhere near him. Gets a shot off. Keeper a little bit out of position. Definitely not top corner. It was a grand goal.
I'll see, it is grand.
I've never said it was. I thought it was grand.
You said it was a great goal.
It's a grand goal.
You literally said it was a great goal at the top of the show. The hypocrisy in the studio.
If only we could. You're deflecting from the fact that it wasn't a world class goal.
Yeah, it's not even for debate now. That's how even that argument stopped.
Do keep your comments coming in. We're going to try and get to as many of those as we can for you. John Hartson, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Were Wales that good or Ireland that bad?
I think it was a bit of both, actually. I thought the Welsh performance was excellent. I thought some of the young players really stepped up, the likes of Ampadu, Brooks, Tom Lawrence, obviously with the goal. Young Connor Roberts played at right back, smashed in the 4th goal with his left foot from outside the box. But I thought the Irish defended very poorly. They allowed space in behind for Wales to run into. I thought the Gareth Bale goal, as good as he took it, and he's doing that every other week for Real Madrid, by the way. You've got to show him down the line. You can't allow a player like Bale to come inside on his favourite right foot. You've got to show him the body angle's got to be right. Show him away from the goal. They've let him come inside. And when you're looking at Gareth Bale from 20, 25 yards out, 7 times out of 10, he's going to stick it in the back of your net.
Was it a world-class goal, John? We've been having that debate here this morning.
Well, it's a world-class finish, but he's allowed to do it. I think if you're clever, it was almost opposite type of performance that the Irish defence put in against Wales in the second the second leg of when you beat us 1-0, and you defended for your life. You sat back. I think it was Duffy and Clark that headed everything out. And let's not forget, last night you had a very good. You had your best back 5 there. You got Seamus Coleman. That was fantastic to see him back fit and well and playing again. Duffy and Clark, Ward, who plays for Burnley in the Premier League, and you had your number 1 choice goalkeeper in Randolph. So defensively, you've conceded 4 goals. Yes, I think the Republic of Ireland and Martin, there was a few problems leading into the game in terms of injuries and a few retirements and things like this. You didn't have the likes of Shane Long available. John Walters will always give you everything. I thought he was very isolated up the top on his own. He looked very much like a 34-year-old, if you like. Not much support, but he battled away. But you showed very little apart from 1 or 2 efforts that fizzed across the face of the Welsh 6-yard box. I think Martin will be scratching his head as to how can my defence play as badly as they did in that opening 20 minutes.
John, how's it going? Ken Cunningham speaking. Are you well?
Hiya, mate. Very good, thanks.
John, there must be a huge amount of optimism around Wales this morning, just the manner of the performance. We're always talking about Wales' marquee players, but some of the young talent which is emerging with that within that squad. Ampadu obviously, but even the likes of Lawrence Brooks as well, Roberts, who came in at the back, and there's a sprinkling of young talent on the bench. I mean, going forward, there's so much verve and energy to the performance last night. Not just that, good technical ability as well, John, in terms of the quality of football which you played. It must be a huge good feel factor around the squad at the moment looking forward.
Well, yes, Ryan Giggs, for all the experience that Ryan has got, he's only had the 3 games in charge up until last night. It was his first home game as the national manager, and his words actually were that performance blew him away. Absolutely blew the manager away, and with all the experience and whatever he's done in his career. But if you look at Mepham at the back, the young, 20 years of age, playing at Brentford, came in alongside the experienced Ashley Williams, didn't put a foot out of place. Ampadu, 17 years of age. That boy is an absolute superstar, even now. Look, what type of player is he going to turn into? And then you got Dave Brooks, who I think it was £12 million, who went from Sheffield United. He's now at Bournemouth. Tom Lawrence, I think he's got 3 goals in 4 games for Derby and the Frank Lampard this season. And when you put Bale through the middle. But there's several others. There's young Harry Wilson that can come into the fray. There's Ben Woodburn, who's at Liverpool at the minute. He wasn't even in the squad. So it's very exciting for Wales. We're not getting too carried away, but when you can churn out a performance like that, and you've got that little bit of a mix between youth and experience, and the likes of Joe Ledley to come in, Andy King, couldn't get in, Sam Vokes could still to come in there. Yeah, the only thing they're lacking, John, the only thing they're lacking really is a battering ram of a centre forward, the old traditional style, well centre forward, back to goal, holding up play, shooting off his left and right foot, putting centre halves on their backside. They haven't got one of them, have they? They don't come around very often. They cost a lot of money, them too, as well.
John, you obviously know Martin O'Neill.
Point of view, obviously.
Sorry, John. Sorry to interrupt there.
It's okay.
In terms of Martin O'Neill, he's become a bit of a much maligned figure over here, especially in the last couple of weeks, because he went on the charm offensive with a number of interviews, and in a lot of those interviews he talked about his success as a player with Nottingham Forest and all that sort of stuff, and people are kind of taking the piss out of him, like, oh, what's he going to say about his own playing career now after the defeat to Wales? And some of that might be a little bit unfair, but from your relationship with the man, is he a manager that can move with the times? Is he the correct manager at a time when Ireland do need to be quite modern and change at almost every level, from grassroots all the way up, and particularly in the senior squad? If you were an Irishman, would you be backing Martin O'Neill for the manager's role?
Well, first and foremost, I have to say I have nothing but the utmost respect for Martin. I can't really judge him as the Republic of Ireland manager because I'm not party to what goes on in the camp. What I would say is I would never ever say a bad word against him personally. It's not for me to speak about Martin. I will leave that to the press, and you Irish, you're not shy in coming forward, like a bit of controversy, you like a bit of a debate. So for me, I will leave that down to the Irish public, to the football fans. They are very knowledgeable. So I would rather stay out of that one. Martin, for myself, he's a great friend. And it's just not it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on his situation as the Irish manager. I just won't go there because I don't want to cause any unsavoury headlines, and secondly, he's a great friend of mine, and I can only judge him as what we are together, the trust and that respect we have for each other. So I'm sorry, I can't. I'm always very honest with you boys. I'm always very, very upfront. But when it comes to a delicate situation for me and Martin O'Neill, he's almost like a father figure to me for 5 years at Celtic. So I will leave that up to you guys to debate if you don't mind.
Yeah, look, that's totally fair enough, John. Can we ask you a slightly different conversation, and just on the basis of even what you're saying there in terms of not seeing the Republic of Ireland that much puts you in a good position to answer this one. What style do you think we were playing last night or trying to play?
Well, you played a flat back 4, didn't you? You tried Christie, Walters, obviously you needed to get close to Walters. Hendrick, what Hendrick does, he's a type of player that that can get forward and look to play off the front. But I just don't think you kept the ball well enough. In terms of a system, you played 4-5-1. That's what you played. You had 5 across the middle of the park, 4 at the back, and you played with John. You played with John Walters up top on his own.
Yeah.
You never got enough bodies close to him. You never defended properly. You never got your body angles in the right areas. You were very naive. You played a little bit high at times. You allowed Wales to run in behind. So there's lots you can go over. You can go over different players. You can run through it, and I'm sure Martin will get the players in today, run through a video with his staff and point fingers, because that performance last night, by no stretch of the imagination, just wasn't good enough for an international team defensively. And there's no excuses. You've got no excuses with your defence. That defence shouldn't be defending like that. Randolph is your number one keeper, as I alluded to earlier on. You've got Seamus Coleman, a world-class right back, playing every week in the Premier League for Everton. Ward the same, Duffy and Clark. They were immense when Wales got beaten. James McLean, you had no James McLean last night, by the way. So I think you've got to take that into account as well. You've got a lot of injuries. You've had a couple of retirements. Darren Murphy's no longer around. John O'Shea's no longer around. You've got 2 experienced boys there that can point the finger and help the likes of Martin and Roy out in terms of doing it on the pitch. Because when you go on the pitch, manager can't really get too much across. You've got to rely on 1 or 2 experienced players. So you lost a few of them. So for me, as I said, it was 4-5-1 with a view to stopping Wales playing. I didn't ever think that the Republic were going to come to Wales last night and score 4. I just don't think you're that type of team, to be honest with you. I didn't think you had that type of them players in your ranks. And as I said, it's a disappointing result for you boys. And now it's going to take strong characters in that dressing room to turn things around for you.
Yeah, we didn't think you were that team either, but turns out you're doing just fine.
What would you have played instead then? Where do you think that went wrong? You tell me.
Well,
what would you have played as 2 centre-halves? You would have played Duffy and Clark.
No, I think,
you would have played Coleman, and you would have played Ward, surely.
I think you're absolutely spot on. We've been discussing it here this morning, and Kenny's been making that exact point that you made, that was probably our starting back 5. It's hard to leave the comment that you made about Martin O'Neill and accepting the relationship there, and people are commenting on it. It was clear to us at the time when you made it that you don't want to make any comment on it. It in itself almost feels like an indictment. I don't want to overly state it. I'm understanding of the fact that relationship exists as well. It feels like you've said as much by not saying as much. But look, we're having a bit of a sort of a wake here this morning, almost, John, and we do appreciate you coming on with us this morning and appreciate your comments as well. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Okay, boys, all the best. I hope we can get it right.
Yeah, take it easy. Cheers, John Hartson there with the Welsh for you this morning. As I said, there are plenty of comments coming in. It was pretty clear by saying that, look, I'm close with this guy, that he wanted to say something but didn't feel as if it was appropriate to say it.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think, you can read between the lines and all that sort of stuff. So I'd say it's interesting what he says, the way he manages to say kind of exactly what you've been saying this morning in terms of the most depressing element of that defensive performance last night was personnel-wise. It's going to be the exact starting back 4, the exact goalkeeper that Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane would probably go for. But the only thing is, does Kevin Long come back into the team? I don't know. Did they make a change now for Poland? Perhaps. Yeah.
But like you said, I'd stay away from the kind of that, to a certain extent, the individual criticism. Even the back 4 unit, in terms of how we defended, it wasn't about because our back 4 didn't play last night. For me, it's about the whole kind of collective. No, John said kind of 4-5-1. It probably looked a little bit more 4-4-2 to me. Callum Robinson seemed to be operating a little bit more central in contact with Jonathan Walters. But like we said before, regardless of how you shape up, what formation that you play, you just got to be set up. You just got to be set up. Be compact, be difficult to break down, fill spaces, play with a bit of intensity, be aggressive. A lot of the time we see teams set up defensively on behind the ball, get into a good defensive shape, and then forget about actually going and pressing the ball. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to go after the ball, force mistakes from the opposition players, not allow them to get their heads up and play the types of quality balls which kind of hurt us last night. So for me, very much about, rather than individual players and even kind of the defensive unit, just the whole collective last night kind of fell apart, which was a bit worrying.
OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. A load of comments on Facebook. Ian Byrne says, listening to the names that Hartson is rattling off in the Wales squad, we just don't have quality players. And Vincent Dowdall says, a lot of the Welsh squad is championship and youth players. Don't agree that the only difference in quality is Bale. The rest are of similar quality. And Nathan Cawley says, any chance that Kenny could do a launch tomorrow night for us in Balscadden, in Balscadden for his local football team, or for the local football team? We're raffling off a house.
Oh, putting him on the spot there.
A house?
I mean,
whereabouts is this? That was interesting, but we were talking about residential property in Kerry not too long ago.
Yeah, we were.
Where's this?
Balscadden.
Now, ignorance there. Ignorance.
I know it's Dublin.
I'm not going to inform you on air.
I know it's Dublin. I think
me there. I thought you'd know that straight away. Bang.
Is it North County Dublin?
North Dublin. No way. North Dublin.
I am open to.
That does not sound does not sound like a North Dublin address to me. I've got to be honest with you. Ballyscadden.
Balscadden,
yeah. I'm very much
swords.
I'm very much open. John O'Brien on YouTube. Look, it's Ireland. We're useless. I've come to terms with this and I feel much better now, unless there's a major shake-up within the FAI. Get used to it. So anyway, the flood of comments that I've seen this morning,
Now, look, let's nip that in the bud. I understand where he's coming from. He's clearly hurting. I can understand it wasn't great last night. Useless, fair enough. But we're clearly, we know we're better than that. We've seen it. And we are better. We have better players. And we should expect more.
Right, the Philadelphia Eagles hung on yesterday for an opening night 18-12 win against the Atlanta Falcons. As you should know by now, we've got a weekly NFL show right here on Off the Ball. So it's brought to you by Subway Ireland. And here's the former NY giant, OC Aminora. Am I right with that?
Yeah, wow, that's pretty impressive. He's for a man who just encountered the name for the first time.
No, I haven't, to be fair. I haven't. It might be the first time I've said it.
Okay, fair.
Anyway, here he is in Colin Kaepernick from episode 2 of our NFL show.
The response that you had last season to the Colin Kaepernick situation is still being watched on the internet as somebody who kind of was passionate and forceful and honest and truthful and who fully understood exactly what that story was about and was able to translate it in 4 minutes for everybody. I don't know if you've looked back on that since that night, because there was so much emotion in the room when yourself and Jason and Mark Chapman were there just having that discussion.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I think the producers really just wanted us to express ourselves, and given the fact that I really love America so much, man, that the opportunity that country gave me is something I'll never forget. And I want that country to be as successful as it's been, and so everything just came out of me and came out of Jason, and it was a really good segment, and I'm really happy it went over well.
Yeah, and people are still talking about it. Was there any backlash? Because I know that sometimes, particularly when athletes take the opportunity that they have with their platform to make a stand, there's frequently stick to sports, stick to NFL, what do you know? But actually, I mean, this is obviously a story you know a lot about, so.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't really any backlash, I think, because we did it here in the UK, and I think people are just a lot more understanding here for some reason than they would have been if we would have done something like that in the United States. But regardless of where we did it, we stand exactly by what we said, and we'll continue to speak out if the occasion calls for it.
Yeah, and Oski is a really interesting story. He went from London to Nigeria to the NFL, and you can get that in the up on offtheball.com or on highlights on the podcast stream or on YouTube as well. So check out all of that, NFL and Off the Ball, with Subway. Be the real MVP watching the game with the meat feast platter. Oof. Kenny Cunningham, I'm absolutely certain, will be a fan of the meat feast platter.
Oh, not a huge, I'll make exception for Bunsen's, in terms of nice.
Well, I mean, Subway is kind of what we're talking about here, Kenny. I'm not going to lie to you.
And there I was thinking you were the real MVP. You've got that title taken away from you, Kenny.
I'm a Bunsen's man these days.
Right, Subway, by the way, lovely brand. That's where we're going to leave that conversation, Kenny. Do not mention it.
Mrs. loves them. Salad box. Loves that salad box.
There we go. Right, Camogie time. Sarah Harrington, Aoife Murray and Jackie Horgan have been speaking to Maura Tarassa ahead of the All-Ireland Camogie finals.
I'm Sarah Harrington and I'm the Cork Intermediate captain.
When we think of Cork Camogie, we think of successes and millions of titles in a row. That's the senior league though, and perhaps people don't often realise there's an intermediate team who've been fighting really hard and have had to deal with some huge heartbreaks in recent history.
Yeah, so over the last 2 years I suppose we've been very unlucky when it comes to the All-Ireland, so we're hoping that this year it's third time lucky, and that this will be our year come All-Ireland final day.
One of the greatest rivalries in Irish sport at the moment is, of course, Cork and Kilkenny's in the Camogie. Aoife Murray, you're captain this year, and the rivalry goes on to another chapter.
Yeah, I suppose it goes on to another year. Look, I suppose rivalries are great to have in sport, and it kind of builds it up to be a great final, to have ourselves and Kilkenny in it. Everybody else probably enjoys it more than ourselves and Kilkenny at this stage.
Jackie Horgan, Kerry Camogie.
Now, I didn't realise this until I was speaking to you today. You play for Lixna, that's your club, and you're also the county team, and you've reached an All-Ireland junior final. That's a huge achievement.
Yeah, so I suppose Kerry Camogie and Kerry Hurling, I suppose Kerry's known as a football county. So I think some people in Kerry don't even know we play Camogie. But so I suppose we're all from different parishes in Kerry, but the Camogie club name is actually Clanmorris, but it's made up of girls from Lixna, Causwick and Miley, Ballyduff, all that. So there's only one senior club team, so the girls who play on the club team are the county team as well. So it's a club county team with a few extra who don't play the county.
That is a massive achievement to get to an All-Ireland final, despite the fact that you have a tiny little patch of Kerry to call your own.
Yeah, it's surreal. I started playing Camogie in 2015, I think, and we had a good year that year, and it's just come on leaps and bounds since. It's actually unbelievable. We're the only Kerry county team to make it to Croke Park this year, and some people didn't even know we existed, but now they do know we exist.
Yes, that was Maura Trask conversation there with Sarah Harrington, Aoife Murray and Jackie Horgan, of course, ahead of the Ireland Camogie finals this weekend. That's where we leave it. We could almost leave it, I should say. We've a very important interview to come, so stay tuned for that. But we could really keep going until about midday, I think, with the level of comments that have come in over the last while, Kenny.
Yeah, but I've got a rendezvous with a Subway breakfast roll after
now
the
we're
show.
cooking.
There we go.
Now we are literally cooking.
Kenny, back on side.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you in. Really enjoyed it. We couldn't have planned it any better. I mean, in terms of the result was a disaster, but the breadth of feeling from people is out there. That's the thing. People care about it. They're sort of interested in Ireland being a better team. I don't think anybody thinks that we're going to win a World Cup anytime soon. It's just that to try and get us playing a bit, sort of grinding out a few more results maybe might be the thing.
Yeah, better days ahead, Adrian. Always the amount of talent, young talent.
Are you actually optimistic?
I'm always optimistic because of the talent, the pool of young talent which are there and which have always been there and invariably will be going forward. We need to tap into that, nurture it, develop it, and we'll be fine. We'll come out the other end at some point.
Hopefully.
Yeah, bit of work to be done on that too. Just a couple of quick comments here before we bring you our final piece of the day. I mean, there's a lot of comments that you probably can't read about the management team that are popping up in the various social media platforms. One tweet here from Dan McDonald: 9 members of the Welsh squad are younger than the youngest member of the Ireland squad, who's Callum O'Dowd at 23. Management deserved flack and it's gone stale. Most of the board who swapped Kerr for Staunton are still there 13 years on, and that's where change is needed.
Yeah, there's a lot in that tweet. It sums it up really well. Yeah, the youth thing is the thing that's got, like when I ask you, are you really optimistic? It's kind of like looking at the youth of Wales yesterday, and maybe to be fair, it's not fair judging ourselves on Wales at the moment. Maybe they're just in a far superior place to us in terms of development and structures and all that sort of stuff.
Dermot Maxwell helpfully points out on YouTube that Balscadden is near Balbriggan. Is that any good to you?
Yeah, Balbriggan, yeah.
So you don't know all about your home county?
No, Dublin, that's borderline. Loud, it's loud.
Do you fancy going out doing a house raffle later on?
When's that, tomorrow?
I think it's
fly back, early fly back.
Look at him trying. A house is a pretty sweet raffle, by the way. Right, that is Kenny. Thanks a million for coming in. We shall talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Owen, enjoy your weekend. God knows what you're up to this weekend.
God knows is right. I don't know.
Owen did last weekend, Kenny. I mean, I would just say this briefly before we go.
Nothing would surprise me.
Instead of going to the showpiece of Gaelic football for the year, which he's considering himself a mini expert in, including one of his own team going for a 5 in a row. He just went to a music festival
in Cologne.
Hamburg, it's Hamburg. Right, that's it. We're leaving you with this. It's part 2 of our chat with the football writer Michael Calvin around his fascinating new book, State of Play. It's getting under the skin of the game. Owen, take it away.
Just to go back very briefly to Drew Broughton, who you mentioned there, he says a lot of things here. Like, you interview Dele Alli, you interview Arsene Wenger, you interview Steven Gerrard. There's so many huge names in this, but Broughton has so many things to say that are so interesting and hit home to me. Just to read out a couple of passages here. One of them is, if you look at the best players in the world, that's how they stand in the tunnel. Ibrahimovic, Messi, those kind of characters, they're not frightened of anything. Study the Champions League tunnels, the elite of the elite. They are shaking hands and hugging and completely comfortable. That's why they're the best of the best. Everybody else is trying to find something. And what he means by that is everybody else is roaring at each other in the dressing room. Everybody else is trying to hype themselves up to reach an emotional pitch that is appropriate for what is a huge game. Whereas the best of the best are actually zen. And there seems to be not only an old school way of thinking, but a misconception that being zen and being chill, as he puts it, as all the great meditators do, is to relax a little bit more. And ultimately that isn't translating to a number of managers, it seems. And as you've illustrated, the drip feed effect of that can be quite detrimental.
Yeah, it can. The dressing room atmosphere, though, is so infectious. I understand how people are carried away by the momentum. I did a previous book called Family, where I was embedded in Millwall for a year, which is uniquely educational experience. I was in the dressing room all the time, on the bench, coaches' meetings, the full 9 yards. And what I found intriguing about that was I was accepted very quickly. They sussed me out for the first couple of training sessions. The senior pros were working out what I was up to, and immediately I just became Mike the writer, who just happened to be in the dressing room all the time, and I was dragged into the pre-match rituals. I had a great Irish goalkeeper there, David Ford, and Fordy at that stage was a very, very loud boy, very loud, and he. In the pre-match huddle, I'm dragged in, and it's the high fives and the hugs, and he came up to me and said, "Big man," something along the lines of, "Big man, wish me luck." So I said, "Have a good one." And as it happens, they went out. He played well. They won 1-0, and at every other game that we were at, I had to say the same thing to him because of the superstitions of it. And being behind at 40 in that very narrow tunnel at Millwall was an experience, I can tell you, because he's at the back, and I always used to go out after the first 11 before the subs, and he would be booming. And so I get the attraction of it, because you see there's this fantastic sort of little mine that goes on in the tunnel, where the opposing team come out and they know they cannot afford to make eye contact with the opposing team. And you've got 40 at the back booming away. And there's always one player who makes that mistake of looking at him. And that's it. They're done then. They're absolutely done. So, they're 1-0 up before they get out of the tunnel. Yeah. So, all that stuff is really entrancing. I thought if you look at what Drew has done, as I say, he's not the big name. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why I wanted to give him such prominence, because I think he's doing very interesting, very important work. But here's someone who's been through that circle of football life. He made his debut, first team debut for Norwich, scored against Wolves at 17. A couple of weeks later, they're playing Leicester, and Jerry Taggart, the hairy-backed Northern Ireland defender, just gives him a right-hander off the ball and proceeds to completely dominate and bully him, verbally and physically. So that's the big lesson early in football life that Drew took on board. As his career progressed, he became that bully, and he would do the same thing to callow defenders. Now, as his career came to a close, he found himself lower down the leagues, dominated either in training or in matches by 18 and 19-year-olds that he would have once just spat out. So here's a guy who really understands the brutal reality of the game. And as he says, I try and put an apposite quote at the start of every chapter within the book. And he talks in his introductory quote about preparing boys for the lies and the deception and the insincerity that is the reality of modern football.
Yeah, it's a good line. Just one final thing on Broughton, because it's such a striking one. It's actually quite important when we look at some of the narrative of the last 6 days. I'm sure you'd have seen it, Michael, the clip from BT Sport of Michael Owen talking about his injuries and how they completely derailed his career. He talks about Wayne Rooney here, and the cliche really was Wayne Rooney, we've all said it, is that he started a little bit too early, he's got a lot of miles on the clock, there's a lot of wear and tear there, and physically he's kind of been decimated, and that's why he might have gone off a cliff to a certain extent in terms of form in the Premier League before he left via Manchester United and Everton. Whereas Broughton is talking about the fact that the wear and tear is more a mental wear and tear, and that we should really be thinking about Wayne Rooney's mental health here rather than the actual body of Wayne Rooney and how that might have been broken down over time.
Yeah, I think I agree with Drew. I think it's interesting. Wayne Rooney is probably on my wish list to do a book with, because he's done previous books which frankly have just been blancmange, PR. Here, I think he is having that, that same process of self-realisation that made Michael Owen's admission such memorable TV. It's interesting with Michael. The flaws and the have always been there just under the surface, but he's been so massively self-contained that he's been able to project this image of assurance and almost detachment throughout his career. And I think what he's doing, I don't know what he did, 4 or 5 years since he's stopped playing. That's the time when players become reflective and they just basically analyse the experiences that they've been through as players. I think Drew did that while he was doing a biomechanics degree for 4 years. And he was trying to find himself. I think footballers, when they stop playing, so many of them have to try and find out who they are. It was interesting. I talked to Arsene Wenger in the book, and one of Arsene's last sort of passing comments at Arsenal was, "I've got to go away and recalibrate myself," because he's going away from something which is got to try and live his life for a change.
Yeah, it's very true. Like you mentioned Arsene Wenger there. There's for 7 when you quote DT from Arsenal Fan TV. We may as well just fast forward to that for anybody who doesn't know the quote here. I'm sure it's almost like an Ed Sheeran song at this stage. People know Arsenal Fan TV quotes off by heart. So this is the particular tune that DT that you quote at the start of chapter 7. I get moaned about for fucking voicing my opinion. When is it acceptable to say this can't continue anymore, and for people to shut the fuck up and actually realise I'm saying it for a reason? Arsene Wenger is finished. What the fuck? I don't know how to speak. I don't need to speak 8 languages, rather, and I don't have to have been a manager before to see we are a fucking shambles. And it's pretty tough stuff for Mr. DT there. I'm not sure if Arsene Wenger himself actually saw that, but 2 pages later, there's a fantastic quote from Sean Dyche, and just the first simple sentence of that quote is, "There's a thirst for blame," which is so true when it comes to the modern landscape of support and the tribalism that exists, particularly at top-tier football in Britain.
Yeah, Mr. DT, he's an item, all right. Last I'd heard of him, he was trying to tout himself around to get a 6-figure sum to appear in one of these sort of YouTubers' boxing matches.
No way.
Good luck to him. And that, to me, is the voice of actually angry Britain, which is another phrase that Sean Dyche used. Complete disrespect for. Well, actually, it's not. It's worse than disrespect. It's just contempt for someone's professional reputation. These people tend to be. A lot of these people tend to hide behind cyberspace, and so, at least Fan TV is out there. But I look at that, and they're trying to commercialise that now, and it's basically debate in inverted commas, without the constraints of truth or balance or knowledge or fairness. And I think it's right that we should actually question the way this whole debate is going, because as Sean said, and as you quoted there, that there is the thirst for blame. The demand is instant. It's the "who are you" culture. Sean made the point about, what would the reaction be these days if an Arsene Wenger type figure had been appointed by Arsenal to take over? Some guy that no one's ever heard of, who's just come out of Grampus 8 in Japan. Yeah. And it would flood social media with, well, who is this bloke? And again, the danger is that owners are affected by this. And that accelerates the culture of short-termism. People, especially lower down the leagues, do comb these fan forums. Now, everyone's got the right to an opinion, and I think that we have to accept that it's an emotionally engaging game, and people do say silly things and write stupid things. But when it's the abuse is visceral and it's personal, let's look at the impact it has on a broader level. Let's look at the family of the manager. Let's look at their kids who are bullied in the playground because their dad just happens to be a football manager. I did a book on football management called Living on the Volcano, where I tried to portray these guys in the light of being workers, being ordinary workers. Now, people, again, they use money as the baseball bat here, and they say, well, it's okay for you. You get sacked from a Premier League club, you've got £7 million in compensation coming your way. Doesn't take anything away from the despair of a father who sees his son coming home in tears because he's been bullied at school.
Did you hear that firsthand?
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah, from several, from several managers. It's tough. It's tough because, especially in cities or smaller cities, smaller, almost like one club in communities, if you like, where everything is magnified by the proximity of the football club. And I've heard the book on my last book was No Hunger in Paradise, which looked at the whole issue of kids in football and trying to make it. And what struck me there was just the cruelty, the casual cruelty of the playing ground. You'll have kids who go away to join a top academy for whatever reason. They are jettisoned at 13, go back to their communities and their schools and their former friends, and they're derided as failures, as teenagers, by their peers. And so it's it can be football can bring out the worst in so many people.
OTB AM. Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.